Native Land Pod is a production of iHeart Radio in partnership with Reason Choice Media.
Welcome
home, everybody. This is our MiniPod. You know, our boy Andrew is out. He is on a field trip with Jackson and Caroline, my niece and nephew. And in his absence, we still need to talk about something that I know Andrew is doing regularly on his solo pods, which is to talk about organizing. And while we're not hitting that directly, Tiff, I think that it's really important for us to examine, to stretch, to hold ourselves accountable in this moment around tools. Mm-hmm. We keep talking about so many people, not just we on this podcast, but folks on the ground, folks in the streets, folks in polls are saying that they're disappointed with Democratic leadership. Where are the Democrats? Where is the fight? And then when we go to people, we say, well, where's your fight? Or what are you doing? We find some of those things are lacking. So I thought what was interesting is there is this letter, and hopefully we can put it up for the guests who are viewing the podcast. But Congressman Jeffries, who is the Democratic leader in the House, recently dropped a letter to Speaker Johnson. And he is challenging Speaker Johnson to a colloquy, which it would be on the House floor, and it's basically a budget debate. At this point, Speaker Johnson, Mike Johnson, has not taken him up on that yet. But what I think is interesting is that members on the House side, Tiff, and I don't know if you're hearing this, but a lot of members of Congress are saying, Cory Booker's getting a lot of shine for a rule that works in his favor on the Senate side. We can't filibuster or debate for hours at a time, especially now for 24 hours on the House side. We're not allowed to do that. So this is, to me, Hakeem's way of saying, I'm going to challenge you in the way that I can with the tools that we have, because our rules on the House side are different than they are on the Senate side. They different in the streets. They different in orgs. They different at home. So how do people meet the moment, Tiff, with the rules that they have to play?
I'm going to say, Angela, because I might lose you in my amen corner, because I got some thoughts about this. So essentially, it sounds like Leader Jeffries is saying to the speaker, I'm challenging you to a verbal duel.
Yeah.
In which I'm pretty sure, basically, bitch. And he would whip Mike Johnson's ass all across that floor. We remember Leader Jeffries had a prominent role on during the impeachment hearings. He's gifted as an orator, but I am going to say, because this is a moment where I think we have to go hard or go home, right? And so we talked about Senator Booker meeting the moment. And I said on that that day that we talked about that on that podcast, I talked about how it made me feel hopeful. And then one of my former colleagues, Ayman Mohyeldin, who is just an exceptional reporter. He still hosts a show on that shitty network that shall not be named, but he does have an amazing show. And just shout out to Ayman, because he's a G. He really is. He doesn't quote rap lyrics every 5 minutes, but he loves hip hop, and he's just a dope guy. So. But these are the questions that came up after Senator Booker. And, God forbid we'd have actual journalists probing him. But Ayman pointed out the questions that he thought the journalists in the room should have asked Senator Booker. 1, why confirm another Trump nominee right after your speech? 2, why miss your committee's antitrust hearing on big tech? 3, why barely mention Gaza? 4, Mahmoud Khalil will be tried in your home state. Why was he not mentioned? Mahmoud Khalil, of course, we talked about him. He is the Columbia student who was deported or detained by ICE, kidnapped by ICE. How do you justify voting with Trump Republicans and establishment Democrats to send billions in weapons to Israel just days after your speech? I think these are all legitimate questions. So when we talk about a leader Jeffries, I think we have to start thinking, again, tapping into our imagination and not participating in this system, this established system that still, again, is responsible for the murder of hundreds of Palestinian children and children all across this globe, if we really want to be honest. Because even the pro-Palestinian protests exclude what's happening in the Congo, exclude what's happening in Sudan and South Sudan. And that's not a diss to the pro-Palestinian pro-Palestinian protesters, that is a challenge to all of us. So if in this moment we're saying, look, this entire system is about to break, then we have to hold everybody accountable and their role in it. If we're trying to have some truth and reconciliation, then there are some people on our side of the divide. I don't claim the Democrats, but I vote Democratic. There are some people on our side of the divide that we're going to have to start to challenge and question. So when I say meet the moment, I think for me personally, I'm trying to believe. I don't necessarily know that this system can be saved. I don't know that it is worth saving. So a part of me feels like once it breaks, then there will be a moment to meet. The only moment I'm trying to meet right now, which I think we share this, but you tell me if I'm wrong, is harm reduction for our people. I think that's the only thing we can do.
Which still means there's something about the construct. If the movement is harm reduction, that means that there's something about the system that you think is worth saving. For those who didn't hear our last pod, Tiff talked about being willing to lay her physical body down in front of the Blacksonian, the National Museum of African American History and Culture. So there are things about this system that are worth preserving and worth fighting for us. And we probably want them expanded. So I think we have to start even being more nuanced in our approach with that language. Yeah. Right? Like I want to keep affirmative action. I actually like the bill HR 40 that Congressman Conyers started introducing in 1989. I want to see that pass. I would like to see legislation make its way through the process and amended so that it is better for us. I would like to ensure that the Voting Rights Act that our forebears fought for in 1965 is here and has all of its pieces, not the gutted version from Shelby versus Holder in 2013. So I think that we have to, and I'm saying this to you, Tiff, but I'm saying it to myself too, because I'm like, let it all go. But I'm like, dude, they letting it all go from 2 months ago and I'm spiraling, right? Yeah. So I'm like, is that really our truth, or is it that we're so frustrated with the most abusive parts of it? And is that what we want to let go? Or do we think we would be better served starting from scratch with veterans benefits, starting from scratch with houselessness and housing affordability, starting from scratch with access to capital, starting from scratch with paying people a livable wage? Is it better to start from scratch, or is it better to build upon what we have, even if what we have is flawed? Yeah. Right? I don't know.
Question. Yeah, and I think that's more of a philosophical question, which I love. Yeah. And I want to try to answer that. I think it is better to start from scratch. I don't know
across
if that's
across
the board. I'll tell you why. I read more than I watch. And so in a lot of reading, it challenges my thoughts around democracy. And around the political and economic system of capitalism. And so when I look at, what is happening here in our country, you cannot have capitalism without racism. And so those two conjoined twins fund and fuel this system. So I don't know that you can fix that system without those things. And so I don't know that I want to be a part of preserving it. And when I say I read a lot, I'm not just reading brainy, heady books. Like I love fiction. I love to read fiction. And one of my favorite books, if you know me and you have talked about reading books with me, then you know The Poisonwood Bible is one of my favorite books. And in that book, I may have talked about it on the pod. If I did, forgive me for being redundant. But in that book, it's about this white Christian family who goes to the Congo to teach the local savages, in quotes, how to live properly. And a part of that is about religion. And one of the chiefs there in the Congo, this is during the reign of Lumumba, one of the chiefs there is challenging this white pastor, saying nothing about your system makes sense to me. So you're telling me in America, y'all are okay with 49% of the people being unhappy just because 51% of the people voted for it. And that makes sense to you. You're also telling me that this boy who is 18 years old, who ain't lived none of the life I lived, you're telling me that his opinion counts just as much as mine, a chief? And it really did kind of lift a veil off me saying, yeah, I've been so indoctrinated by how America does things that I think that's the only way. I read this book when I was like 20 years old, and it just opened my mind that there are other ways. There are other systems. There are other rules of community that we functioned in before we were kidnapped and brought here and had the humanity beat out of us. We had a whole system that worked for us. So I don't know that this system is the thing to save. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to sit on my hands and watch it fall. Like, I have no choice. I'm not a proponent of this system. I am the system's hostage. And so as long as that exists, we have to try to live within this 400-year nightmare as best we can. So I don't feel good about sitting back and letting people starve. I don't feel good about sitting back while people don't have clean drinking water. I don't feel good about sitting back while people are losing, like you said, with the unhoused. Or increase in crime or drug addiction, like all the things I'm seeing just in my neighborhood. I feel like there's a role to play. And I know it's a lot of pressure on you, Angela. I really do. I know you don't complain and all of that, but I do feel like there are a lot of people looking to you right now to say, well, what do we do? And I think you have really met the moment, not by saying I have all the answers, but, let's at least try to figure something out. And I for all the people complaining and all, like, at least that is happening. At least you are saying, let's put one foot in front of the next and figure out something. And what has emerged from that are other leaders. Other people have said, well, Angela, this might not be your wheelhouse, but I can do this, this, and this,
for sure.
Or, Angela, I know this is in your wheelhouse, but you have your hands full, so I'm going to lead this effort. And so those things are happening, and I'm proud and privileged to be a part of that and plug in where I can. But I definitely understand people in a dizzying array of like, what the fuck?
It is a WTF every day. And I guess the thing that I'm wrestling with is trying to, listening to you and trying to hear my own intention and wondering, like, is it my fear that makes me feel like treating America as a startup is not a good idea? Or is it the present moment of like what Doge is doging? Does that feel like that feels remarkably irresponsible? And then it's like the wild, wild west out here.
Yeah.
But like there's progress that our forebears made that I don't want to get rid of. There's, when I think about even when they brought up that cancer research funding could be hit, given my mom's current situation or the number of people I'm talking to who just got a cancer diagnosis, I don't really want to start that over from scratch, just from time. Like just from a time standpoint, I want to make sure that people are good right now. For, the folks who are in an IVF process or who are struggling with being able to breathe and are on oxygen, or they're in dialysis or have high blood pressure and they need medication and access to prescription drugs or access to some type of holistic treatment. Completely dismantling our healthcare system in the middle of a health crisis sounds like a horrible idea to me. So I think that what I need to try to pull apart is like, when we're talking about the system, are we talking about the fruits of the system too? Or is that fruit of a poisonous tree? Or are we saying this foundation is the thing that I want to disrupt, but I'm not trying to get rid of the fruits that have been beneficial to our people, even if they're not where they need to be. We know that they are decent. We know that they are good. Can we build on decent? Or are we also saying, regardless of the crisis somebody may be in, if they need their SNAP benefits, if they need that veterans benefit because there's a mental health crisis happening, we still want to get rid of all that? Like, to the individual person be damned? I don't know that I can. I feel like the anxiety going like this in my chest from that.
I think, yes, I hear that. I think that is a worthy anxiety because that does leave a lot of questions. And what do we do? I think the scary part is we are getting rid of all that. Like we are not.
They are.
But it is eroding. Yeah. And so as it is eroding, how do we protect ourselves? And we at least need to tap into our imagination to figure out repair. If this is eroding, what's next?
If we frame this like we're not talking about dismantling all this, having nothing, and then building from scratch. We're saying as this falls apart over here are some other solutions that are better than what was over here anyway. Yeah, I like that. So it's like a transference of an abusive system to one that's actually supportive. It is a transition plan. Yeah, a transitional structure, an on-ramp, a bridge.
I don't know if this country, I truly believe that our idea of America no longer exists. I think a year from now, I think this country is going to look very different. 10 years from now, I think it will be unrecognizable. Yeah. I think all empires fall. and it's just our turn to fall. I don't see America surviving. I mean, the one thing that we have as a country is our military budget swallows everybody. If you combine everybody's military, our military budget swallows that. However, with technology, I don't know if that matters as much. With AI and drones and how weaponry has advanced, all it takes is for somebody else to have 2 or 3 weapons that can overpower. Or if they knock us off our grid, what does that look like? You know, if there's, it is something to me, even that we
really
are
need to be talking about that.
We seriously do. And it's something to me that we are at Gen Z and then the next generation is A. I'm kind of looking like maybe Gen Z is it. Like maybe, you know, maybe when by the time Gen A gets here. You've been
offing people a lot today. You just
I don't mean to.
Everybody
I'm
did.
not saying everybody's going to die, but I'm saying by the time Gen A comes around, will that be a post-apocalyptic society that has to build? And if so, what does that look like? And this gets into Afrofuturism and, you know, like what really, how can we tap into our roots and our history to create a future that is more in alignment with our spirits and who we are as a people? We've been forced to participate in this system. And I just don't know that it's worth saving, but I don't want people to misunderstand me and think we are not worth saving. We had Roland Martin on the show this week, and he talked about, you know, going from micro to macro. And it's like, yes, that counts, you know, and you have those infrastructures. I'm a doomsdayer. I'm getting deeper into doomsday. Like, if something goes down, what's the plan? And you all the way in Seattle, Angela, like, we need to figure out how do we get together and how do we survive?
Well, this is the thing, right? Like some of what there are people that are like, oh, this Save the People tour, ain't nobody trying to talk about politics. I'm like, we not either. We trying to make sure we can survive. Right. We have an organizing plan in the event that they disrupt all the systems that we normally use to organize, at least over the last, 10, 15 years. So that's just it. Like we have a lot to do in a little bit of time. People are like, why are you moving so quick? We don't know how much time we have. You don't see how much they tore apart in 2 months? Like, no.
And with these tariffs, everything is going to increase. And so then you think about what are people going to do when you cannot afford to buy food? And so I think it is worth, we should have somebody on the podcast, maybe John Boyd would be a good guess, farmers. Because what does it look like if we start to grow our own food? That's what I mean, like small steps. So if you can't afford to buy food anymore, what does it look like to grow food? If you can't afford to buy eggs, what does it look like to raise chickens humanely? Because even the mass production of chicken, like the way our meat is killing us, the way so how can you raise chickens humanely that are producing eggs, that is giving you protein? How can you grow vegetables that are not, marketed and covered in pesticides and coloring and all the things? I'm open to those kind of conversations. So I would love to have John Boyd on. And we talked about doing like a doomsday episode about what do we do if we wake up tomorrow and we're knocked off the grid.
Or if we literally mid-podcast and the power just go out. Just
what
everything
do we do? I mean, that was kind of the plot on Zero Day on Netflix. But if I can't text you to say, hey, girl, are you okay? If I can't call an Uber to get to the airport, which ain't even functional.
If you can't use your phone, if the power is completely out, you ain't got no generator.
What are your survival skills?
If people are like, oh, well, I just want to be informed, let me go to Native Land Pod on YouTube. YouTube was like, hell with them. They're being censored.
Ain't no internet.
And then they're like, well, let me go to the iHeart app. And they're like, it's like the little scroll when it's like they can't even get a signal.
Yeah.
What you gonna do? Who you gonna listen to?
That is a legit
Who you gonna call?
Question.
Ghostbusters?
Right.
The young kids don't know nothing about Ghostbusters.
No, that is funny. Mm-mm. But as this trade war with China increases, I mean, that is a legit threat. We have a lot of enemies. No,
it is. We are not making, like, people will say, oh my God, you worry so much. These are legitimate concerns. I worked on the Homeland Security Committee. We have been talking about this for years.
What is the
long
takeaway
before Donald Trump
from the Homeland Security? Like for all your years on the Hill, especially on Homeland Security, shout out to Congressman Benny Thompson, friend of the show.
Love you, boss.
Angela's former boss. Is there any takeaway that you have? Is there hope? Like, trust me, guys.
I was like, no, my answer was not about to be hopeful. My answer is going to be what everybody's been saying. They've been saying, America, you in danger, girl. America, you been in danger, girl. Like all the vulnerabilities on every side, from the grid to even what you see with TSA, which now they're talking about defunding too, but at TSA when you're at the airport, well, now we take off our shoes if you don't have pre-check. We take off our shoes to go through the metal detectors because somebody had a bomb in their shoe. Well, what happens with TSA, and has long existed, now we're on down a whole other road, but the short version is they only respond to a threat once it's already occurred. That means it's too late.
Yeah.
They're not anticipating the next threat. Now they have these long ass machines that are super expensive that goes a lot slower and still don't detect everything they're supposed to detect because it could be operator error,
Yeah.
So it's just, there are so many threats. And I think homegrown terrorism is, to me, the biggest threat because we saw what they were willing to do on January 6th. Now, the January 6th insurrectionists are inside and sworn in to the government. These are your people, y'all. These are the people who have been appointed to positions where they should have a certain level, pass a certain background check. Background checks be damned, right? So these are now your people. The January 6th insurrectionists are now the Trump administration.
Kash Patel is running the FBI. Like, if that doesn't give you great concern, the angry internet's comment section is running the government. Right. Like, legit crazy people. One thing about, I think, our Homeland Security that you talked about that really, this is the thing that keeps me up at night. Political violence. We've talked about it on this show many times. It just takes enough people to say, I do not adhere to these rules. I don't want to stop at stop signs anymore. I don't want to stop at stoplights anymore. There are anarchists who are actually in the government, running the government. And then there are people outside the government who are followers, who are members of this cult, who can just decide. Right now, Donald Trump, a part of his executive order that you sent me on D.C., not only to recriminalize marijuana, but also to institute open carry in Washington, D.C., where it is the home of our federal government, where you have dignitaries from all over the globe. Do you know how hard it is to even get a gun permit in the nation's capital? Now, Maryland and Virginia is something else, but in the nation's capital, there are over 30-something law enforcement agencies that exist in the nation's capital because it is that big a threat. And I wondered, when I'm there, I'm like, do I feel safer in D.C.? Because it's not a big deal to be walking down the street and see a sniper on the roof. Like that means, the president might be coming down this street later. Like, we don't know. But it's just something do I feel safer, or do I feel like it's a bigger target on me because I am here where the Pentagon is housed, where the Capitol is housed, where White House is housed? I have felt safer until this half-witted, politically inept fool took office. And now I feel not safe at all. I feel like it is a bigger target. Even this week, he I don't know if you saw, he was at the NRCC dinner, which is the campaign arm of the Republicans on Capitol Hill, and he's talking about, you guys should see all these heads of state kissing my ass. They want to make a deal. Like, who talks like that?
Donald Trump.
You were talking to the whole globe. You were talking. I'm telling you, Angela, I do not see this country surviving. I don't. I think it's a wrap. I think it's a series finale. The white man's America.
We might already be dead. You offed us in the last episode. This is true.
Anyway, we are coming to you from the hereafter, from the great beyond.
We are coming to you from the pearly gates. I hope this is the pearly gates because I hope heaven don't feel like this. Actually,
no. I want my spirit to be so elevated. I want to be in a completely different.
You basically just want to feel high.
Yes. Okay. But elevated in a way that my mind can't even comprehend. That I'm gonna be honest too. That's another reason why I smoke. Like the stressors.
Okay, well the doors of the weed church are now open, but the podcast is over because we off on another tangent.
Okay, well I was just trying to say. Oh, I just wanted to say the reason why I smoke is because the stressors of life. Now, I used to smoke, every now and then. When I say every now and then, I mean like once or twice a week. In this Trump administration, I just want y'all to know, your girl is smoky over here. I'm not one of those waking bakers.
My name is Tiffany. People are like, "Hi, Tiffany." This is WA, not it's not AA, it's WA.
Listen,
she might not want help though. She might just
That's
want
what
relief.
I'm saying, because so many people, like prescription drugs, Xanax, Zoloft, all of that stuff. Like I'm not judging anybody who takes it, and I'm not a wake and baker. Like I can't wake up and smoke and fun. If I ever did this show high, trust me, everybody would know.
Everybody would know. Yes. It ain't no like we'd be like, Tiff, just drink some water, take a nap, and come back.
Yeah, just sit there.
She would be like this.
Seriously, it would be dead air. Angela could be asking me a question, and I would have the thoughts, and then they would start to run away, and I'd be like, no, wait, and then the thought is gone already. So in the evening, for me to sleep, I gotta take a hit, and I sleep. I'm comatose, and I wake up at 5 a.m. like I can run a marathon, like I'm ready to go. But it is the thing that stops my mind from focusing on all the things keeping me up at night. It really is. And I surmise that there are a lot of people. I'm going to say this, and I don't know we got to go. But I just thought about this. I forget who was it. It was maybe one of the networks. And they did a special on moms who smoke. Okay.
Oh yeah.
You saw it. And
I feel like I saw a clip.
Girl, I was so damn offended. It was all these moms, ain't no black mamas in sight, and it's all these moms who are just talking about how much they love weed and they pass weed and blah blah blah. And I just thought of all the black mothers who are sitting in jail because they needed to smoke. Like they didn't have half the privilege of these women in this video, or the fact that it's celebrated. Because it's a bunch of white women in there who like to smoke. It was celebrated. But imagine doing a segment on 15 black moms who were saying smoking weed helps me be a better mother. Like I have so much stress in my life. I got to smoke sometimes just to get through the day. Do you know Child Protective Services will be at the homes of those women? But because they were white privileged women, it was something to celebrate. I looked at it in disgust. Anyway, I just brought that up because I was talking about smoking. And now I'm upset and I got to go smoke. So thank you all for tuning in.
Y'all, sorry. This is definitely your ADHD episode. Welcome home, y'all. If you join Tiff on the high end of the spectrum, let her know. She'll be happy to know that she is not alone in this moment. So in all your smoking, just make sure y'all are acting as well. We appreciate y'all. God bless you and your families. Welcome home. Until next time, we'll see you there.
Welcome home. Native Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.